Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to PlayLoad. This is all my video game pickups for the month of August 2024. Actually, that's not entirely true. We're going to have package time at the end. They just didn't fit on the table, so this will be broken up into 2 chunks. Now, before we get into all the good gaming stuff, if you guys could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, as well as check out all the social media stuff on the description. I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, my Spreadshirt, travel channel. I appreciate the support on all those places. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, if you guys saw earlier videos this month, you'll know that I had a bunch of Japanese pickups videos and all that sort of stuff, and there was basically things in there that I included that, you know, couldn't be part of PlayLoad, whatever. So if you saw that, you might be a little confused as to what you're seeing over here. This is the PV1000, a system by Casio. I already showed this. Why are we putting it in here again? Well, if you did see that video, then you know that I mentioned, even though I found this console in Japan, I couldn't find a game for it. A little reminder here. This system was made by Casio, like the company that makes watches and keyboards and stuff. They made a system back in the 80s to really kind of compete with the Famicom, and I would argue it's more like a ColecoVision as far as capacity goes. It didn't last very long. I think it was actually recalled, to my recollection, and only 13 games were ever made for it. So basically, when I found the system, I wanted to find games. I couldn't. However, there is a guy who makes a multi-cart. So I actually reached out to him, and for weeks I didn't hear anything. He actually responded to me like 10 minutes before my video went up. Not after, before. So it was just an amusing coincidence of timing. And he's like, yeah, I still have some in stock if you want to buy one. So I was like, absolutely. So I did. And he mailed it out, and here it is. This is what we're talking about now. This is the multi-cart for the Casio PV1000. He makes these himself. It looks like a Mega Drive or Genesis cartridge because he basically just recycles the cases, but it totally works. It uses dip switches as well, and it actually has like a menu here. Well, if you don't have a menu, let's call it a key, a map key, if you will. It says, here's all 13 games that are on this thing, because again, they only made 13. All of them are on the cartridge, and all you have to do is kind of cycle the dip switches to whichever game you want, and that's what's going to boot up. So the cartridge is the new pickup, and it is very good because it eliminates me having to ever find any games. Now, granted, if I'm in Japan again and I see a cheap game, certainly I'm going to get it, but realistically, this was just the best solution considering I just don't find PV1000 games, and I wanted to be sure the system works. Spoilers, it does! But it's also built like crap. So, yeah, we'll see. It runs Japanese RF, so it's like, oof, which is just like, not only is awful, but getting it to actually work over here is a bit of a pain. You have to run on things like channel 95 and stuff like that. But there apparently are composite mods, which would be a huge upgrade, believe it or not. So that may be in the future. We'll see. But one day, I'm going to do a video on the PV1000 as well as the flash card, like one combined video, because realistically, that isn't 2 separate videos. But, yeah, we'll do that another time. I just want to show you guys that. Now let's move on. So, this month I did a couple of conventions. I was a guest at Long Island Retro. Here's my badge. You know, they flew me out there to be part of that. That show was interesting because that was my second time doing it, but for that show this year I was more of a museum component, not just because I'm old, but because I had the Sega Pluto with me, the Atari Jaguar dental equipment. They're like, you should just be in the museum area rather than like the YouTubers area, which was totally fine with me. I didn't care either way. There will be videos from that event that they just haven't come out yet at the time I released this video, but that'll be a thing. They gave me a little swag bag that included a pin. It also included a guide, and of course some stickers and stuff like that, which is very nice of them to do. And then the bag itself. There was actually a t-shirt in here. However, the t-shirt was like an L, and I am a much bigger than an L, okay? I'm an XL. So I couldn't fit in that, so I gave it to a buddy of mine. But yeah, there you go. Nice little satchel, too. This was actually... I don't know how to wear these things, really. Like, do you just do it like this? Like, I'm double jointed, so I'm sorry if that's weirding you out to see my arm bent like that. But I'm putting it on backwards. There you go. Yay! Okay, now that everybody's grossed out, let's move on. I also picked up some stuff at the con, obviously. So the stuff I got was actually really great. The person I primarily got stuff from is a buddy of mine named Steve. We call him Sega Steve in my Discord. He is kind of to the Saturn what I am to the Dreamcast, but maybe on an even more obsessive level. Like, the dude is actively trying to hunt down, like, every variant of the Saturn and has it multiple times over. Like, he's got the Karaoke Prologue unit. He's got 4 of them, which is insane. That's a Sega Saturn, but it's also a karaoke system. Point is, he came with a bunch of Saturn stuffs for not only for display, but also to sell. And he hooked me up with some stuff. He's not really a Dreamcast guy, but occasionally he gets random Dreamcast bits while trying to buy Saturns. And this was one of them. This is the silver and black Dreamcast controller, exclusive in Japan, with one of the editions of the system. This was technically sold separately at one point, so it's not as rare as it otherwise would be if it had only been included in a bundle, a special edition of the system. But all the same, this is a very uncommon version of the Dreamcast controller, and he had it, and he was like, oh yeah, and he was cutting me deals. I'm not going to specify specific numbers, but it was basically like, I would rather you just have it than me have it type of deals. I did pay the man, but he could have made more money off of someone else, but he was doing the bro thing. So that was very cool of him. That goes obviously in my Dreamcast collection. Other Dreamcast items that I got. So Videogames New York was there. Videogames New York is pretty much the biggest name in Dreamcast independent development publishment these days. So Dan, who's an awesome guy, he actually hooked me up with 2 of their new releases that I didn't have previously. This is Ploid and Recnum, Soul's Adventure. I haven't done videos on these yet. I will. It was actually kind of funny. So he had asked me there, like, hey, how come you never did videos on those? And I was like, I thought they never shipped. I never actually got them before. Apparently these came out months ago. I didn't know about it. So yeah, look forward to it. These will both appear in upcoming separate videos. And there's a birthday video coming up for the Sega Dreamcast. September 9th is, of course, the anniversary. It's actually the 25th anniversary, kind of a big deal. So in conjunction with Video Games New York, we're going to be doing a big, massive giveaway, but all the details on that will be in the video. So keep an eye out on September 9th for my video. We're giving away a bunch of free Dreamcast games. Spoilers. That's what's going to be happening, so pay attention to that. But in the meantime, thank you very much to Video Games New York. Now back to Sega Steve. You obviously see a Sega Saturn in front of you. This was really cool. This is the This Is Cool edition of the Sega Saturn, which is a variant that only came out in Japan. It's got a transparent case. It actually says on it that it's cool, so you know it's cool. It looks really neat when it's on because of the way the LED works and everything. It literally says this is pretty cool. There are a lot of reproduction versions of this case now. Typically, they don't actually include the "this is cool" part. So this is actually the original version of it, not a repro case. So that's awesome. And he sold it to me again at a bro deal, and he included the original controller as well. If you are interested in that kind of thing, do be careful though, because like I said, there are a lot of reproductions of this now, and so you just make sure you got a legitimate one. There's always ways to tell. Like I said, they usually don't say "this is cool." I don't know if the little red mark here on the Sega Saturn is usually there on the reproductions, and of course the back part would have the actual Sega sticker and everything, so just putting that out there. But yeah, that was a huge win. That was my big pickups from Long Island Retro. I also went to Kansas City. Well, actually, before I get to that, after Long Island Retro, I should say, a buddy of mine named Sunshine and I, who was actually the one who ended up with the t-shirt, we drove up to Albany to get some of their famous steamed hams, as I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with. But while we were up there, we checked out a couple of game stores. Nothing particularly exciting, but oddly enough, we found one store that had some cool stuff, but it was like crazy expensive, except for the junk area, where everything that they didn't know was like crazy expensive. You know, like, for example, they had like Snatcher on Sega CD, and it's like $2,000. You're like, okay, no thanks, I'm good. But on the other side of the coin, they also had like some standard stuff that's usually in that 20 to 30 range, and they were charging like 10 to 15. So that's the stuff where we kind of found stuff. More so he did. I found one thing, and I was like, it's nothing I crazy need, but at the same time, it's actually a decent price, and I'll get it. That would be this. For the GameCube, Hot Wheels Velocity X. My goal for the GameCube is to get every single game for it that never came out on the original Xbox. It is a very slow-moving, glacial goal, particularly the North American titles. This one just chips away at it a little bit. I think this was like 10 or 15 bucks. I think it was 10 bucks in the end. So nothing crazy awesome or anything like that. It's just something I needed for the collection, effectively. Then I went down to Kansas City. So while I was there, I was invited to Kansas City Retro as a guest, which is always a good time. I've been there as a guest multiple times. I'd missed it last year, but this year it was really good. They were in a new, much bigger space. It was great. So as, of course, I got a badge, nice big badge there with the event schedule and all sort of stuff on it. I like the Donkey Kong versus Godzilla artwork there. That's cute. But I also picked up a bunch of games. Now, I don't know how about you guys do this, but when I go to a con, I typically go there as a guest. In fact, I don't know if I've ever actually gone to a con, at least the retro video game convention, for my own entertainment. I always typically go there just to effectively work at the con, if you get my drift, as a guest. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoy the cons a lot. That's just, my motivation is typically a little different. So, point is, I don't usually do a whole lot of shopping, and I never really go in with I need to find this particular item type of objective. This case was a little bit different. I found some deals, I found some stuff I needed, and there was a couple of things I went into this con being like, I need to get that. I organized this poorly, but let me show you which one came to mind first. There's also more stuff I got there that's off screen. This is what I got. Star Wars Jedi Starfighter. Now, if astute viewers of the channel, perhaps Orky Borky of Canada and my Discord in particular, will already know I have this game. So why am I talking about it now? Well, this is one of the games that's, I think it's like 66 titles, that are original Xbox games that are backwards compatible with the Xbox One and Series X, etc. Now, one day, I was on my Series X, and I noticed that, like, more than half of my original Xbox games that are compatible were just magically not listed anymore. I don't know why. So I was like, what happened there? So I was grabbing the discs for the ones I've got that I knew were not there. I was putting them in, just trying to see what would happen. And it would basically say like, oh yeah, no, the game's installed. It just wasn't in your catalog. So as soon as you put the disc in, it would do literally a 0 kilobyte update, but then the game would appear in your library all of a sudden. Fine, whatever. It basically just needed to redetect the disc for whatever reason. So I was like, okay. So I'm going through that process. Star Wars Jedi Starfighter is one of those games. So I put the disc in, and the console, for the life of it, will not recognize the disc. I tried it on multiple consoles. It would not work. It would work on an original Xbox, but for whatever reason, the Xbox Series X and Xbox One would just... You'd just hear this noise, and it would just never, ever work. So I got irritated. I was like, it's not that expensive a game. I'll replace it. So I found a disc-only copy at Kansas City Retro for $5. I bought it, brought it home. It worked just fine. So that's good. Now, I don't have it out here because there's no point, but there is another game that haunts me like that, which is Dead or Alive 3 for the original Xbox. I have a copy that I've had for years, and it installed fine, and everything was good, and then the same situation happened where I put that disc in and it wouldn't work. Now, for whatever reason, that first disc, I put that in everything, including an original Xbox. Nothing will read it anymore. I don't know. I don't get it. So at the same con at Kansas City Retro, I actually found a guy selling the exact same game, full box complete copy for $5. And I was like, oh, all right, I was about to get it. And he's like, oh, yeah, you can just take it, dude. So huge shout out to him. I believe his name was Kyle. So thank you very much. He gave me it for free. And I was like, oh, perfect. That solves that problem. I bring that exact same one home, pop it in the Xbox, the exact same noise. So I now have 2 complete copies of Dead or Alive 3, neither of which will be recognized on an Xbox Series X. I don't know why. It's a little annoying, but yeah, if anybody out there has like a spare pile of Dead or Alive 3 original Xbox discs, let me know. Anyway, so that's some stuff I got. Other than that, it was just kind of stuff that tickled my fancy for whatever reason. We'll start over here. Well, I know we're doing this out of order, but this. For the original Xbox as well, this is a demo disc for Conker's Bad Fur Day. I've talked about this in the past. I really like my demo discs. I think they're kind of an odd, bizarre thing to collect, particularly for certain systems. Sega stuff, Dreamcast in particular, but then my second go-to is usually OG Xbox, as far as like weird demos that I just like the idea that they exist. I did not know there was a standalone demo disc of Conker's Bad Fur Day. It was only a few bucks, so I was like, all right, that's cool. Unfortunately, the disc on it is kind of funky, so it probably is going to require a resurfacing, but I just haven't dealt with that yet. But this one's definitely not compatible. The original game is, funny enough, though. So yeah, that was just a cool little thing to add to the collection. So what else? Let's see. There was one guy in particular across the table from me. So like I was situated there with the Sega Pluto and everything. And, you know, when it was slow, we'd kind of chat across. He'd come over and check out the PlayLoad. I'd go over and check out his stuff. And he started, on day 2 in particular, he was just cutting me like crazy deals. Because he basically explained, like, yeah, we're not a store. We're just a couple of guys who have a bunch of stuff that we're just trying to get rid of. So he was like, I'm happy to cut deals. So he started going like full force, just like half off this, half off that. So let me show you the stuff I got. Again, I should have organized this a little better. I do apologize for that, but that's going to go to the side. First up, for the N64, it's been a long time since I bought a North American N64 game, but Knife Edge Nose Gunner was only a few bucks. I still kind of would like a full N64 set, but I've just kind of stopped caring as much. I'm only one away from the Japanese exclusive set. I don't think I'm ever going to get it. I have all the European exclusives, but that's really small. It's the North American stuff in particular that I'm missing a lot of. But hey, we chipped away at one of them. And then another one that shockingly I didn't have, but a lot of people told me I really needed, is Mischief Makers. This is one of 3 games that Treasure made for the N64, and the only one that they released in North America. The others being Sin and Punishment, as well as Bangai-O, which were Japanese exclusives. So, yeah, that's a pretty cool game, and good to have that. Again, nice deals on that. For the Saturn, funny enough, Virtua Fighter Remix. Now, I already have this. In fact, I have 2 other copies of it. This game is bizarre because of the way in which it was released. So the story goes that when Sega was making the Saturn, they released the North American version of the system too early. Basically, they did that surprise launch, I think it was June 1995, and the development team behind Virtua Fighter simply didn't have enough time to get the game done, and the same applied in Japan, by the way. So the initial release of Virtua Fighter is kind of a buggy mess. So the team ended up spending another like 6 months to a year continuing to work on the game, and it would eventually be released as Virtua Fighter Remix, which is really what they had intended the game to be. So, when the game came to being released in North America, there was like 3 different ways of doing it. There was a like paper cardboard version, which is just like a little disc sleeve. I don't have a sample in front of me, otherwise I would show you. Actually, I do. This isn't mine, but here. This is Silent Hill Shattered Memories soundtrack. This is for a buddy who I picked this up at Kansas City Retro from. By spoilers, there's a CD for that game. Anyway, Virtua Fighter Remix came in a sleeve like this in the United States, and I think it was mailed to people specifically who could prove they had bought Virtua Fighter, the original, and wanted the updated version. But yeah, it came in one of these. But yeah, and that's totally side and totally unrelated. This is not mine. A friend of mine who's big into Silent Hill stuff wanted this, and he paid for it. So I guess I'll show it to you while we have it here. But yeah, so it came out like that. And then there was also a long box version. You know, Sega Saturn games came in those bigger long boxes. That release, from what I understand, was only sold in Canada, making it the most bizarre North American release to try and get. Not necessarily the most expensive or rare, because things like Panzer Dragoon Saga are always going to win that argument, but it was the only one, I think, that was released in just Canada. Whereas we also got this version. This is the CD jewel case version. I've never seen this version before. It's not really worth much. I think I paid like $10 for it. It's like a $25 deal, or a $25 game. That's my point. Like, he was just cutting deals on stuff, and yeah, it was just a variant. But I very rarely collect Saturn, software anymore, because most of it's just prohibitively expensive. So to add something to the collection that, I didn't have to sell a kidney for is nice. And lastly from him, well, not technically lastly, but we'll get to that in a second. As far as games go, lastly, he also he gave me a good deal on Mario Party 7. Again, for the GameCube, I was trying to chip away at stuff. Sadly, though, the disc is defective. I have a tendency, after I get disc-based games, to dump them just to verify that the disc is complete, because if you're that guy out there who's like, oh, I bought some used games, I threw the game in my GameCube and booted, that means it's fine. It's not fine. I actually archive all my games completely, get the full data sectors out of them, because that way, if you do that, you know that the disc is completely fine. Just because it boots doesn't mean it actually is capable of being successfully read all the way through. This would be sadly one of those cases. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to get the disc resurfaced and hope that saves it. Otherwise, I have the manual in the case and no disc, which is annoying. But I can't really be mad at him. It's not his fault. And at the same time, I have to be honest. He was cutting me like crazy deals on stuff. So it's really not that big of a loss, even if I don't get that to work out. But all the same, there was that. And then I picked up 2 of the stupidest things I ever chose to purchase. So a friend of mine named Ben, who was cool enough to let me crash with him at KC Retro, is one of those dudes who is just kind of like He's a millennial who's just kind of getting out, as a lot of us are. He's like, oh, I got the kids, we're moving, blah, 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 that kind of thing. Normal demographics. And he's like, I'm going to sell a bunch of stuff I don't think I need anymore. He's decided he's going to sell at least chunks of his Virtual Boy collection, because at one time he had the full set, at least cart only. And he decided to sell me these two for what I would call a very reasonable price, considering what they sell for. So here's what I got. Waterworld and 3D Tetris. These cases are obviously not original, but that's just for fun. He used greatest hits like DS cases, but inside you can actually see like there's the legit cart of Waterworld, which is a North American exclusive Virtual Boy game. There weren't many, and it's a notoriously bad game, but it's also a notoriously expensive and rare game, and it's based on one of the most infamous film flops of all time. And then, of course, 3D Tetris. I've made the mistake, too. I thought this was the same game as V Tetris, the Japanese game, which is common as dirt. And I was like, that's why I'd have been ignoring it. But no, it's actually a completely separate release, totally exclusive to North America for the Virtual Boy. So, yeah, that was cool. So I got both of those. Again, I paid more than I wanted to pay for anything. But at the same time, considering what they sell for, he did cut me a very good deal. So I have to be happy about that. Now, circling back around, I told you I didn't necessarily go into this con with any particular objectives outside of that one, referring to the Star Wars game. There was one other thing I wanted for a very specific purpose. You may be familiar with the Sega 32X. Now, I actually have, this is going to sound very self-indulgent, but I have 3 32Xs already. I didn't really need another one. However, a buddy of mine is like, well, the Project Neptune, like the Sega Neptune prototype, there's now like the fan recreated ones. You can get new cases, and like there's a lot of soldering and stuff, but you can basically make a Neptune now. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. He's like, yeah. He's like, I'm willing to make you one, and that video will come way down the line, everybody. But he's like, yeah, I do need you to supply some parts, specifically a 32X. And I was like, ugh. I didn't really want to sacrifice my 32Xs, because I have this idea of having them kind of set up for display. So it's like a Genesis Model 1 with a Sega CD Model 1 with a 32X, a Tower of Power. Then, a Sega CD Model 2, Sega Genesis Model 2, and a 32X. I even have, and I did a video on it, the Sega CDX and how you can integrate it with like a 3D printed, attachment so that the 32X will be mounted to that. So basically I didn't have one I wanted to sacrifice. So I was like, well, I could go around and try to find a junker one at KC Retro. I don't even care if it works. It's not that big of a deal. He would fix it. So I'm looking around, and I go to one table, and the guy's like, for just the unit, nothing else, he's like, I'll do like 125. And I was like, oh man, what happened? Why are they so expensive now? I'm looking online, even broken ones, 4 parts are like in the 110, 115, sometimes as high as 130, 50 range. Again, I sit there and I think, like, I remember 32Xs for like $20, but okay, whatever. That's just me being old. But, so I was like, oh, I don't want to pay that. Then I found one guy who was like, I will sell it to you for 100. And I did it. And that would be $100 for a 32X. Now, considering that the purpose of this is to put it into a Neptune where I don't have to pay for the labor or any of that sort of stuff, you can kind of look at it like I'm paying $100 essentially for a Neptune. So with that context, I'm very happy with that. But yes, this will be a sacrificial part. Now, why do I bring that up? So in addition to just showing you the fact that I got it, the guy who sold me a bunch of this stuff, he actually had 32Xs, and I had asked him on day one, like, here's what I want to do, like, what are you selling them for? And he's like, like, they're in really good condition, and I have no desire to do that. Like, it was all like, okay, no problem, I got you. The next day, so after I had bought this one on Saturday, I walk into the con on Sunday, and I'm just like, hey, what's up, everybody? And then he's like, oh, hey, Adam, come over here. And I was like, hey, what's up? And he just hands me a 32X. He's like, here you go. And I was like, what? What are you asking for? He's like, no, you want to make the Neptune, right? We're trying to get stuff out of here. You can just take it. And I told him, I was like, full disclosure, like, I bought one yesterday. And he was like, oh, well, now you have 2. So, yeah, that was very nice of him to do. So I ended up with 2 32Xs. I think between the two, this will probably be I know I pulled that one out first, but I think this will actually be the sacrificial unit for the Neptune. And this will probably end up in like a Wonder Mega or something so that it looks nice. But, that it'll be more display purposes. But anywho, that's it for this section. Give me a minute to reset, and it's package time. And we're back. Yeah, apologies there. So I got 3 packages here, all of different items, obviously. The first one is, I know what it is, and we're going to be talking all about it. This is a practical use item for me. Second one, legitimately, I don't know what it is. And the third one is very special. And this is definitely in your... We're going to give it its own video territory. And speaking of which, and I don't think I made this clear, whenever that Neptune thing is done, obviously that's getting a video, and that This Is Cool Saturn at some point will get a rare variants video. So stay tuned. Basically, the Dreamcast games are getting their own video. There's a Dreamcast, the anniversary video coming up, the Casio PV1000 video is coming. I got a lot of stuff to do, guys. But that said, let's start here. So, this first package comes from a company called Xcool. I'm not going to lie, I hadn't heard of these guys, but from what I can tell, they actually had reached out to me because of my travel channel, which, by the way, you should check out if you haven't seen. I think it's criminally underrated, but, you know, to each their own. So inside, they sent me this. This is the Xcool cable, which we're going to open up. So... there's a reason I have all this stuff out here. So anybody who sees me, especially one of these conventions like Kansas City Retro or, you know, Long Island Retro, etc., always kind of notices that I've like have fistfuls of cables on me all the time. Like this sits in one of my pockets at all times. It's just various cables I need for various things. I keep a small SSD, which I've shown you guys in the past. This is amazing for everything I need. Like when I film footage on the road, you know, on my phone, I have to archive it. This is perfect. I also have this like awesome power cable thing I was sent, you know, I don't know if it was like a year ago, whatever. I use this on airplanes. I plug it in, and then basically I'm always wired. I've got stuff going on, but it's a lot of stuff, and it would be admittedly nice to reduce that. That's where Xcool seems to have come in. And like I said, I'm not totally sure where this came from as far as their motivations. I think that they watched the travel channel a bit and maybe thought they could help, because occasionally I do kind of complain about this type of thing over there. But anyway, so let's go ahead and take a look at it. We'll get through the packaging here. I'll put a link in the description if this is of any interest to you. You guys can pick it up. It's on Amazon. But anyway... and full disclosure, they sent this to me for free for the purposes of review. And even further disclosure, they offered to pay me. I turned it down. I don't do sponsorships. Like, I don't want your money. I want you guys to watch videos and enjoy your videos. I appreciate the patronage and things like that, but sponsorships I do not and will never do on this channel. I will not do it. So that said, I'm just checking it out as a piece of technology they were cool enough to send me. And that always goes for anything. But yeah, inside we got a couple of items. We have the bigger main piece and then like a little bonus box that goes with it, which I may have to open from the other direction. Alright, or it's just legitimately like stuck in there. Well, I guess we're tearing it open. Yep, there we go. Bye. Okay, so each of these has different things. So this is the main piece, so we'll go ahead and start with that. In this box, you have, there it is. It is a green Xcool cable. They call it the 4-in-1 fast charging cable. It's 100 watts. So it is ultimately a cable. Now, what makes it special? So we'll take these little bits off. It actually has multiple interfaces. So it's a super fast charging cable, 100 watts capacity, and it has multiple inputs and outputs, or multiple port options, let's say here. So it's got a metal ending, and you can see right there it's a USB-A cable. I believe that's USB 3.2. And then on this end you have Lightning or iPhone stuff, which I have no use for. However, hidden underneath side is another port. You can move this off to the side, and there's a USB-C port. The same actually goes for this as well. It's a little bit of a transformer. So you have that. It supports data transfer as well, which is super useful. So basically, you can use this cable to basically reduce the amount of cables you need. I cannot tell you how many situations I've been in, and some of the people who travel with me and see me on videos, work with me on stuff, notice how frustrating this gets when you're like, I need to move, like, say, I needed to, for a small example, when we were up in Albany, we needed to get footage from this hard drive over to a PC, and all I had was the USB like C direct cable, and then we had to figure out trying to find an adapter or whatever. If I had this on me, no problem. It's just flip the head and then everything works. So for me, this is one of these things that just makes my life infinitely easier. So it supports rapid charging, obviously. But yeah, multiple types of ports. I don't ever think I'm gonna need the iPhone port because I don't do that. But at the same time, if I'm ever like hanging with people and somebody just wants to charge their phone, that's what its purpose is. But basically, USB-C functionality, USB-A functionality, rapid charging, and then being able to be compatible with multiple devices in the same cable, i.e. don't need this, which is really what I want. So if I have this thing, which I am the good Samaritan on an airplane, by the way, everybody. So if there's power outlets there, I always plug this thing in, and I bring the brick up to everybody, even people I don't know, and I'm like, everybody plug in. There's no reason for us to awkwardly have to stick our hands down by each other's legs trying to get this thing to work. That's me. So I want to make that even easier. So if I'm on a flight and I don't need anything, I'm like, oh, that guy has an iPhone. Well, I'm ready to go. I can charge that guy. That's how I roll. But yeah, so thank you very much to Xcool for the cable. It also included this, which is just some stuff that goes with it. One is some extra, I believe it's extra Velcro bits, so that you can do a better job wrapping your cables. And this, which I have to admit is pretty unique. So if you, let's just go ahead and take a look at this, actually. So when you undo that, we'll get rid of the little twisty tie bit. Yep, there we go, on both sides. They included this little, like, I don't even know what you would call that, but basically it's like a cable mount. So on one side of this is actually like a piece of tape. You can actually remove this and it'll be like a sticky adhesive bit. You could then, if you want to, like mount it to a table, mount it to a wall. I'm using the cardboard box to illustrate this, obviously, but you can do that, and then the cable, you can then feed it into the rope in between those, and it'll just mount the cable. You see? And that way, if you're like, you know, just for organizational purposes, you can use that, and I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, they also did a little bit of an extra bit here. So as I understand it, the length of the USB port is longer than it normally would be. Now, the reason for that is because they use this metal ending. This is metal, is an out of standard shape. So as a result, it may not fit with certain phone cases and things like that. So they decided to make an extended version. That way it basically is more likely to always be compatible depending on your phone case. That obviously could change. But yeah, in general, that should be doable. Now, again, the bulkiness of this could potentially be an issue depending on what you have it plugged into, because it's not uniform to most USB ports. So if you have like multiple USB ports and things lined up next to each other, it's possible this won't necessarily fit with the others, but they did their best to avoid that. I know this sounds like a stupid thing to be like excited about, but to me this is actually really awesome because, again, it helps me eliminate this pile of crap, which makes me very happy, because then I can use this for data transfer. I can use it for charging. I can charge anything USB-A, like my headphones. I can charge anything USB-C, like my phone, or anything I need. So this just reduces the stress on my life when I travel around. So I'm very, very grateful. I really am. So thank you very much to Xcool. And again, I'll put a link in the description if you want to check them out. You made my life a lot easier. Now moving on to this. I legitimately do not know what this is. It came from the UK. I think I have an idea. I'm going to call it out that it might be a magazine or a book that I helped to work on. But that's just a guess. So let's find out if that's actually true or not. Inside it is... Oh, it is not. This is a new issue of Debug. Debug is an indie magazine put out in the UK that is about retro gaming and the latest that's going on with that. I did not know there was a new issue of this, but yeah, it's like a traditional or classic throwback to like gaming magazines in the 90s, but made by, you know, cool nerds. I know, I've enjoyed their works in the past. This is not what I was expecting. I mean, to be fair, I wasn't really expecting anything specifically, but I thought maybe I knew what it was, but this isn't it. So this is all the same. It's very cool. Yeah, I wasn't expecting this at all. Oh, hey, there's Daniel. I know him. He's a friend of mine. The guy right there. He's one of the guys who runs Wave. So, yeah, anyway, I just pulled that up at random. I wonder if this talks about any of the... So I went to a con in the UK a few months ago in Wolverhampton. I wonder if there's any parts that... I'm going to have to obviously spend more time and I look through this, especially since this is literally my first time seeing it, so I didn't know what to expect. But yeah, I'll go ahead and look at that later. I think that'll be fun. But yeah, I'll put a link in the description if you want to pick this up. I'm sure there's a place online you can get it. This is called Debug, the Blueprints, or they're just going over a game called Blueprint. No, it's just issue number 6. Just issue number 6 of Debug. So very cool. So thank you to those guys. Now, the pièce de résistance, the big one, as you can see. This is going to get its own video, so I'm going to have to really tease you guys right now, but this is going to be good. So let's go ahead and open it up. This comes to me from Power Up Gaming. My buddy Justin, he basically does like modifications and repairs and upgrades. He's one of those guys, you know. I've done videos on his stuff in the past, and he's always done quality work. And he decided he wanted to send me something. So again, this will get its own video. We just got to get all this stuff out of the way. We got a lot of cardboard and packing material, and we have the work order here, which we'll look at in a second. First up, we have a little HDMI to micro HDMI cable adapter, which will give you some clue. Oh, I guess it looks like we're just going straight into it. Here we go. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else hidden in there, so I guess that's it. It is a PS2, and a beautiful one at that. So, in case it isn't obvious based on this first little clue, this one has actually been HDMI modified, which I don't know yet, as I have not had a chance to use it. This might be that unicorn of having a PS2 not look terrible. So he did a lot with this. I'm just going to take a quick look at it. He redid the laser system, so PMAP laser calibration. So basically he cleaned that all up. He did the pick fix solution. Somebody explained that to me at one point, but I forget what it is. I think it has to do something with like another element of the laser. I don't remember. Obviously, there's the console itself. He did the HDMI mod. It has the Retro Gem installed. I actually did a video on that for the N64. That board is now in here. This is the Shiny Edition, so it's got all the extra firmware updates, options, and all that. He redid all the capacitors, and as a bonus, he even decided to put a mod chip in it, so it's now region-free, and obviously can therefore also read burned discs. This is the version that has the expansion bay, so the idea is going to be... I did a video on this not too long ago. Well, okay, not too long ago, meaning like a couple of years, I guess. But you can load free McBoot on this thing, and you can also put an SSD in the back of it and just load your games off of that. So that should be relatively simple to do, because it's basically just plug and play, because I've already done all the other work. But you might, hypothetically, be looking at the ultimate PlayStation 2. And I look forward to reviewing it in full and actually talking to you guys about it. So that'll be fun. So, until then, I want to give a huge shout out to Justin, of course, at Power Up Gaming. There will be a link in the description. Shout out to the guys at Debug. Shout out to XCool. Shout out to Sega Steve for hooking me up with those deals. All the guys at Kansas City Retro. All the guys at Long Island Retro. And just everybody involved in any element of all this cool stuff that we got to check out. And thank you guys, as always, for watching. I appreciate you. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check all the social media stuff in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, Travel Channel, etc. I appreciate the support so much. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.